Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the BB-Scho. I'm your host, Beebs, once again joined by my co-host, Chen, and once again graced by the presence of Mr. Jake. I don't even know, Luke. For Luke, we say Luke got locked. I don't even know what to say for you, but Jake, welcome back. We're here to recap Super Bowl 57. And Jake, I'll toss you the floor right away. Your thoughts?
All right. So it's kind of a simple thought, simple takeaway, but for 48 minutes roughly, or 58 minutes, I should say, um, we were in for a classic Super Bowl. Possibly one of the all-time great Super Bowls we've probably in the last decade plus. Um, Guaranteed the most exciting Super Bowl I've seen since the 2017 Eagles Super Bowl. So apparently the Eagles have a correlation with being an exciting Super Bowls. But that call, that last few minutes there, with the holding
Oh,
call,
we're diving right in.
we got to dive right in. I think we get this out of the way. We can talk about all the other good parts. Um, it was just not a correct call at the time of the game. Especially, I think there was a lot of other more egregious calls that weren't made. That would have changed the course of the game. I think this was just kind of the Brady goat, um, Patrick Mahomes goat kind of treatment. We're going to give him the ball in the final 2 minutes, let him get the victory, let him kick the field goal and take it away. That's kind of what I felt. But other than that, I think the Eagles played great. Personally, I think Jalen Hurts could have won the MVP. Um, if it wasn't for that fumble, even with the loss, I think he could have won. If it wasn't for that fumble, my takeaway is Hurts could have won Super Bowl MVP even with that loss because I think he did outperform Mahomes there overall. That's my take.
That's your take. I'm gonna give it to Chen because I know he's gonna disagree, so I can see it in his face.
No,
So
I figured when you asked Jake to come on, I figured
hey, no,
you
hey,
needed
hey,
some
Jake,
backup. I
Jake
knew you needed
asked
the
himself
backup.
to come on. Jake asked himself to come on.
All right,
So,
all right. No, it is that's cool. I can work on, 1v2 handicap match. Um because all right, here's my I am not disagreeing with like would the finish have been better if the call wasn't made? Like obviously I wanted to see the Eagles get the ball back. Well, I mean not for our picks. I'm glad the Chiefs won,
oh, I didn't even
coming
think
out
about
as a
that.
winner on the year by one game.
It's
Still the odds, of it all just lining up that perfectly is crazy enough in itself. But like we always, this I guess is just where I just have a hard time getting really upset about it. Was the reality was it was one of the better Super Bowls we've ever had, definitely since 2017. But like it can't be perfect, and for the most part, it was, and the refs made the correct call. I mean, when James Bradbury comes out and says, even with all the emotions, not letting it be like, oh, he's like, no, like I screwed up because he did. He had a hand on the guy's arm, he had a hand on his hip, and the reason being, down in the red zone, they had gotten burned by not only Kadarius Toney but Sky Moore on the exact same thing, where they did the little motion inside. Once the corner overplayed, they break back out. And so in real speed, it actually helps the case even more of the hold because you can see Juju Smith-Schuster get pulled back a bit. So I'm again, do you guys not like the call? Yeah, it sucks that at that time and place it was called, but the reality is the refs got it right. And so with people coming after the refs saying you can't make that call in that moment, I'm sorry, they were just doing their job. I don't think they probably have it on their
I
mind, but like each
yeah.
play to play, they got to focus on the play. I really don't think that it's in the back of their heads because if it was really that rigged, the Chiefs would have gotten blown out in the Super Bowl
No,
against Tom
no.
Brady.
It,
31-9. Like, I don't think it's rigged in Mahomes' favor. I think even if it was, then they would have just let I believe it was Miles Sanders that pretty much coughed it up, but he just didn't make that last football
Yep.
move to
Yep.
secure the catch. They probably would have just let that go if they really wanted the Chiefs to get it because the Chiefs were down 10. It was 24-14 until
no,
the
yeah.
Andy Reid masterclass of the second half. Um, and
In
that's
my
just my
opinion,
takeaway.
the Bengals, in terms of rigged talk, the Bengals and Chiefs AFC Championship game had much greater of a case than one ticky
That I
tack.
can concur with. Yeah,
Yeah,
there was no
when you're
pushback
giving
from me.
people a
We talked
free
about that.
third down, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Like that is bad officiating. And I even at one point remember turning to my grandpa and being like, I don't think we've really talked about the refs having a bad call tonight. And I think it might have been before like the whole Devontae Smith thing. Personally, I do think that close there, you kind of just give them the catch. I think failing that was the worst call of the night.
So
But
yeah, let me start by saying this. When it comes to this call, in no way, shape, or form did the Chiefs in no way, shape, or form did the Chiefs not deserve to win this game. They played an immaculate second half, scored on every single drive. I mean, yeah, honestly, I don't even think Mahomes played that like spectacular. He didn't play bad, but I mean, you look at his box score, he threw a couple like less than 5 yard touchdowns, but they were just offensively, they were unstoppable in the second half. And I'll get into what I think the bigger issue was now that I've had time to settle on it in this call. I still have a huge problem with this call because whether people like to admit it or not, this type of grab and hold happens on over 50% of routes run. Richard Sherman said it himself. This type of thing is very ticky tacky. So whether or not it's the right call, by the book, I don't think anybody can dispute it, especially when James Bradbury comes out and says, "Yeah, I held him." But I just want to piggyback of, and I'm not sure if you guys saw what Richard Sherman said, but he basically said like you just can't make that call in that moment. You cannot do that. And as a fan, my biggest grievance is not the refs making the right call, not the Chiefs winning a game they didn't deserve to. My biggest grievance is that we didn't get to see Jalen Hurts and that Eagles offense get the ball back with a minute 20 or whatever, right? So everybody seems to be saying this obvious take of like, oh, the Chiefs are going to win anyways. And it's like, dude, okay, if the Chiefs win that game 38-35, making that field goal, and they go out and then they stop the Eagles, right? Okay, but I think we got robbed of overtime, but potentially the way that both offenses were clicking. And honestly, the biggest thing that bothers me the most now, forever, right? When you name a Super Bowl by its thing, it's like, oh, remember Super Bowl 42, David Tyree, right? Super Bowl 51, the comeback. When somebody brings up Super Bowl 57, that call is what I'm going to think about. And then the 27-yard chip shot that was the most anticlimactic finish to one of the best 58.5 minutes of football I've watched in a long time. So my biggest grievance is the ending being taken away from us on a ticky-tacky call. We can disagree on whether or not I just don't think you make that call in that moment. I don't think it was egregious enough to like just swallow the whistle. That's kind of my takeaway.
Then I have a question for you guys. You both might know the answer, but isn't it a 5 yard
Yes.
grace
Yes, and it was right on the line of
holding?
scrimmage. Yes, it was under
Yep.
5 yards, and it was right on. I forgot to say that. Thank you. I still think for holding, ball was in the air. I still think it's, the jersey tug, right? Like
that was the other thing. Like, yeah, I know the 5 yard rule. It's just like he was trying to leave his route and man was pulling him back. It wasn't like Juju was in front of him, like he was past him, and then the hold was
no.
And again, like I know you guys can keep saying it's ticky tack like this and that, but like when the corner comes out, like Mike Pereira, head of officiating, like people that I'm sorry are at higher levels of the NFL than us, I'm gonna tend to side there. I just have to like go like the Bengals. They came out and said like, yeah, the officiating was bad. Like this was no, like dude, everyone at the highest levels, it was a hold. And like I'm sorry, like yeah, it could have been a better finish, but the reality of that game was it was still a fantastic Super Bowl. Can't get caught up in like the fantasy aspect of it of what could have been. It could have been better, but I'm
okay,
still
no,
gonna
I
cherish the
disagree
fact
with
like
that
I was able
statement.
to watch up to that point.
I disagree with that statement of this. Like this was a fantastic Super Bowl, regardless of the last minute and a half. Because honest to God, it has left a sour taste in my mouth, and I don't think it's going away forever. I'm never going to look fondly upon this Super Bowl because of that. Imagine if they'd have called, like I always think about this, like imagine on the David Tyree catch if they had just called like PI or Manning's forward progress was stopped, right?
Or
and
holding on the offense or something.
Not like something holding, but like something like Manning's forward progress was stopped or roughing the passer or something like that, where like the guys, it was just a horrible call that like ruined the moment. Like that's how I feel.
But it wasn't a horrible call. Like that's the issue.
No,
you're having me imagine these scenarios that didn't happen. Like this is the reality of what had happened in the game.
But like
and the refs did their job. I get your
dude,
point, man.
That's
like,
how
that
you
could have
play
been
defense.
better.
That's
but
what
like,
I'm getting at. Is that happens on every other play? That exact scenario, and that's my problem.
That's you can't
We can
pull
get
a
into the
receiver off
fact
his route, man.
I
The
don't.
hand fighting, I know what you're talking about. I do. But like Richard Sherman, especially, is going to be biased. The guys I've brought up, and like that's not biased. It's just the reality of the play.
I don't know. I think we can all agree, and this is my core of the problem. Is not like I said. I'm not that upset about the result because the Chiefs did deserve to win. I think there's a serious rules problem in the NFL where it's extremely skewed to the offense, and that is not a hot take by any means. I think a lot of people, when you look at the season as a whole, say that like rules, pass interference calls, and whatnot, it's just skewed toward the offense, and like it's no question why, right? Like points gets views for the NFL, but it's increasingly getting harder and harder to watch. I think of the Raiders, was the Raiders Chiefs game with the roughing the passers that were horrible on Monday night at some point this year, right? Like the NFL has some problems that continue to get swept under the rug, and we don't need to talk about it, but it's starting to get to the point where like I'm happy, and this is my frustration. I'm happy that I don't have to watch football anymore after the last 2 weeks of the end of the games being that bad.
Woof.
I mean, it's
It's like the ultimate salt, man. Jeez. I just didn't know you were a Philly fan, bro. Like this.
I'm not. That's the crazy part. I'm not.
Wow.
I think for me, this Super Bowl changed my opinion on Philadelphia. Definitely not the Philadelphia fans. I still think those fans are ferocious. But in terms of Jalen Hurts and the leadership that team possesses from the head coach down, the way they handle the media afterwards, you even alluded to it, Christian, with Bradbury at the end when he said he screwed up. Um, I think the masterclass of Jalen Hurts and the Eagles being mentally stable through that, and then just kind of like, hey, we made mistakes. We're going to learn from this. Um, I think the AFC and the NFC are going to get more even as we get going here. I know there's been a lot of power and a lot of young quarterbacks in the AFC, but Jalen Hurts I don't think is going away anytime soon.
No.
Regardless of what his contract situation looks like going forward. I can't say for certain, but I have a feeling he's a team friendly deal kind of a guy. I don't think he's going to go for that $45 million contract. Thinking he's going to sign. And then added to that, do you guys think Patrick Mahomes deserved Super Bowl MVP at the end? That's a big question that I have because I think a guy like Nick Bolton with the scoop and score, or Pacheco could have been in line for that MVP award. What do you guys think about that?
I hear where you're coming from because it really felt like Pacheco took over, like especially in that second half. The box score, I don't think does him any favors. Like he had a consistent game, but I think that's what's holding him back from Super Bowl MVP. It wasn't that Mahomes was crazy either. I don't even think he went over 200 yards, but the 3 touchdowns. I mean, I believe Pacheco had one, and then it was spread out. Like Kelsey had one, Sky Moore, Tony. So Bolton is a good case for that because I think his touchdown really kept them in that game, given when it happened. But just because we know the history of MVP awards now, Super Bowl MVPs, it usually goes to the quarterback. I think we even brought it up on last week's pod how that the Patriots come back against the Falcons, like James White, it felt like should have even gotten that MVP. Like even with the stats, it was like, holy cow, this guy carried and Brady still got it. So
I think the Super Bowl
a
does
player
a
has to have
job than the regular season
sorry,
MVP.
go ahead. Yeah.
I think the Super Bowl MVP does a better job of not being an exclusive quarterback award than the regular season MVP.
It's better. It's definitely better.
Yeah.
But when has been the last? I'm thinking Malcolm Smith is like the last guy that comes to mind. Edelman
won.
Was that the Rams one?
No, Cooper Kupp, guys.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp.
Oh yeah, last year Cooper Kupp.
Jeez.
Right.
All right, no, never mind me. All right, it's definitely a lot better.
if we want to get into that, I think Aaron Donald should have won MVP last year, the Super Bowl.
I think that's actually a fair take. I that is a very fair take.
And
Jake, to
I'm a
answer
little
your,
biased to that because I did have $15 bet down on him winning the MVP. I would have paid out 150, so I'm a little upset.
Jake, to answer your question, I think Mahomes deserves it as much as anybody else on the Chiefs team. I think this was like a true, really solid team performance, right? Like he didn't light up the box score, but he threw 3 touchdowns, 6 incompletions, 180 yards. It'd be one
No
thing if like,
sacks.
yeah, well, I want to get
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
but it'd be one thing if like Kelsey had like 100 something yards and 2 of the touchdowns, and it'd be like, okay, let's give it to Kelsey. But 6 for 80 and a touchdown. Bolton is really the only guy I can think of, but do you give it to a guy off of one, scoop and score play? Like if you'd got the other one that got called back,
Oh,
then yeah,
definitely.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Give it to Bolton. But I don't know. I do agree with your take that it almost feels like Hurts could have won MVP as the loser if he doesn't have that fumble. He played that well. Like he was really the one who lit up the field more than anybody else. But I think by default, Mahomes is the best option if there's no true. I mean, you got to play ridiculous to get it as a non-quarterback to get it.
Yeah. My next question about, I guess, Jalen Hurts is there's a lot of I think Nick Sirianni said it. He's got MJ swag. Hurts does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he does, though.
You guys think so? He's just got this like he's gonna win mentality. Like I feel like I don't know. I feel like the Eagles are set up if they can keep his contract at a reasonable price and that offense together. This team is going to be legit for like the next 4 or 5 years. Easy.
I think their defense is pretty old. That's my only concern is that their defense is, especially their pass rush is fairly old. Like, but but they don't have an elite superstar. So if they can find more rotating guys to do what they did this year, then yeah.
I think the thing with their D line, they have Jordan Davis. So I mean, he's a rookie this year, and he dominated. Like we saw what their run game was like without Jordan Davis. They had to go pick up Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh just to fill that gap with one guy. Plus, they have like a top 10 pick this year due to the trading.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think it's 5.
Yeah.
I think
so they have the opportunity to load up again because I think you're going to lose a guy like Brandon Graham and who led the league in sacks? Was it Hickens?
Was it Reddick?
Yeah, I think it was
Reddick at 16.
Reddick, that's right.
I'm assuming they bring him back.
Like you guys, you go get it. You bring him back, but you get Roquan Smith. No, I'm losing my names here. Who's the pass rusher they got from the Bears?
Oh, you're thinking of Robert Quinn. You're thinking of Robert Quinn.
Yeah.
Like
he was on 1-year deal as well.
Like they can supplement that in the draft because they got enough capital. Like I said, I think the Eagles are here to stay. I'm just nervous as a Vikings fan. It just kind of makes me mad, but
yeah, I think the Eagles can definitely make it back to this stage when we talk about getting back. I mean, is that your question? Like, can they make it back?
Yeah. Do you think they can make a repeat next year? I mean, at least not the Super Bowl, but like a deep dive NFC Championship.
Yes, definitely yes. Teams are going to figure them out, though. That there's always like regression, and that's what makes the great teams great. Is if they can sustain success year to year. I think the NFC is going to be wide open, so I don't see why not. But I do want to say, when it comes to this stat, we're now 17 quarterbacks who have started in their Super Bowl debut who have never made it back, losing Super Bowl quarterbacks that have never made it back. So Burrow and Hurts, obviously, there's an asterisk on that, but Garoppolo hasn't made it back. Goff, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Kaepernick, Rex Grossman, Hasselbeck, McNabb, Jake Delhomme, Rich Gannon, Kerry Collins, Steve McNair, Chris Chandler, Drew Bledsoe, Neil O'Donnell, and Stan Humphries all lost their Super Bowl debut and never made it back to the Super Bowl. A little bit of a change of subject. Sorry, Jake, but I definitely wanted to bring that stat up when it comes to like, there's a trend here. If the Eagles are going to make it back, they're going to have to break that trend. Same for the Bengals. But yeah,
I'm curious your guys' opinion on the idea that Jalen Hurts was so dominant, and there's traction to this. Dean Blandino, like a former head of officiating or whatever, he actually still might be. I see him on TV time to time. Anyway, uh, they're talking about banning like the push, like
Yep,
that
I
we
heard about that.
saw. Yeah, like
I
there's
find that
traction that actually might like do something about that. And one, I think it's very stupid. Like it's just why. I mean, we've never, for some reason, seen a QB sneak probably this dominant since maybe like Brady and I think maybe Cam Newton. Um, I understand it looks like they're getting this huge surge, and like the guys that are pushing them are doing a lot of the work, but like people gotta remember Jalen Hurts back in college was squatting like
Yeah.
600 pounds. I'm
600
assuming right
pounds.
now it's probably like 800, maybe 900. And it's even when he
Okay,
like earlier in the
okay,
season,
hold on. You think he's
I do
squatting
too.
900 pounds?
Dude, he could probably squat a semi. Like, let's be realistic.
Oh
That
my
guy,
God.
he's like talk about say quads, bro. Like, no, like Jalen Hurts, he's got I don't even know what a good comparison would be, man. It is wild that every time he ran the ball, he fell forward. That was like one of the
Well,
things from
what
like
was it, like
rewatching the Super
34 of
Bowl.
38 on the season on QB
Yep.
sneaks?
Yeah, that is absurd. And even that, it's like, so okay, because he's so good, you're gonna go and ban the play. Like,
Yeah,
that's like it feels like a whole Shaq thing all over again, and I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, eventually someone's gonna figure out how to stop it.
I would
Like it
agree
was
with
their first
that.
season of really abusing it, especially in the Super Bowl. Like teams are gonna be ready for this next year.
Yeah, I mean the rule proposal is just to ban the pushing from behind, right?
And
So
I don't
like
even think it does that much. I think
I
it's
think
really
in the
honestly
I think
Jalen
in the
Hurts' initial
that's what my
just
takeaway too is like how long have we gone without a quarterback or we've never had a quarterback in the history of the game to have this strong of legs to be this successful at it. Like it's not we've had guys come in and get pushed before and still get stopped. Like it's not just and then we're also forgetting that he has an all-time center directly in front of him, Jason Kelsey, who is
Yep.
I mean he's an all-timer. I
yeah,
don't have a top 10 center list off the top of my head, but he's up there, right?
Mike
So
Webster.
yeah, if they okay, if they get a new guy in there and Kelsey retires or something, which I don't think he will, but it could be just as ineffective. So I don't think it's worth, like you said, I don't think it's worth the rule change. But it is a weird talking point.
And the NFL like is actually considering this. I can't. Of all the things that's a problem, aka their grass, this is the
Can we talk
point.
about the
Like
grass, please?
that
Can we
needs to
talk
be
about the
talked
grass? I've
about.
been waiting
Who's
to talk
going to the
about the
grass,
grass. What a
Oh,
debacle, man.
bro? It
Um,
a almost $1 trillion business. This entity of the NFL is, and then we have in the Super Bowl, the most watched sporting event in the country. We can't have a good turf. I mean, what is going on? This is I don't know. It's the silliest thing I think I've ever seen. We have professional athletes in both the first and second half in the Super Bowl slipping on the turf, possibly getting injured, and this is supposed to be the most thought out, like delegated game to get prepared for, and our
I
turf
mean,
is slippery.
neither team had a sack, right?
Yeah, and that
yeah.
changes the aspect of
I mean,
so much. I mean, you go from having 70 sacks in the NFL to the turf being so slippery you can't. I mean, I play D line. If it was a rainy game, you're not going anywhere. You're slipping and falling, and then you're getting shoved into the dirt by an old lineman. But there was no rain, so this was the
Yeah.
it
It's
was a
Arizona,
failed.
man.
Yeah, I mean literally,
There's no
well,
rain.
the desert.
I
There's no
heard a
rain.
rumor that the halftime show had used like some sort of smoke or heat or something that
Okay,
caused
that's
the no that all the players said at the start of the second half it was worse because it was slicker like it was warmer and moist from the heat from like the fireworks or something from the halftime show. So
Rihanna.
that was courtesy of the
Yeah,
Pat McAfee show. So take that as
I'll
you
We'll take
take
that with
that
a
as
grain of salt.
probably valid. Oh, okay. No, I feel like he's usually pretty reliable. I mean, he's getting sued by Favre. I don't know if anybody saw that.
I
Like,
saw
Defamation.
I'm telling you, when Luke said on the pod, I think it was either Tuesday or last Tuesday, how this year has already been full of like just side quests. Like I feel like there's been so many just random things, and yeah, Brett Favre suing a former punter. That's pretty random. But sorry, back
Yeah, it
on
was him and
topic.
Shannon Sharp, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, Brett Favre shooting Shannon Sharp when he played with
Shannon
his
Sharp
brother.
and Pat McAfee for defamation. But
Yeah, they wrong.
also there was like a big scandal in Mississippi where Brett Favre, during COVID, there was a
Yeah, it
welfare
was like
scandal where
it
he
was a
got like
welfare scandal.
he
Yeah.
got like millions of
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for people to call him out. I mean, it's kind of it sounds a
I
little screwed up.
don't think he's been convicted yet, though, and that's the defamation loss. Like that's his basis
Okay.
for the defamation
Gotcha.
lawsuit.
Whatever.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, I think he probably will.
You guys defend
Yeah.
Brett Favre.
Oh, I'm not.
I'm not gonna
just
defend
stating
him.
the fact
Yeah.
that he's. I think he's suing on the grounds that they're claiming he's this criminal and he doesn't think he is, which I don't know the facts if he is or isn't. But clearly, if
Roller
someone's doing
coaster
a
of a
defamation,
quarterback,
yeah,
but not a great guy.
Anyways, back to the grass being terrible. I don't really have a take other than that this was extremely impactful. Clearly, on I don't think the Chiefs had a stellar pass rush, but it definitely wasn't poor. And the Eagles are the best in the league, and to not have a sack in the game, the box score says that Hurts got sacked twice. I'm pretty sure those were on
Those
runs.
Those were coverage sacks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a complete like game-changing error, like game plan-changing error. So, where do we go from here? You know, that's my question, right? We have all these fields changing their turf for the World Cup coming up in 2026. All these players instituting grass, and they come up with this new formula, and it's terrible. So, you guys have any ideas? I mean, what's the next step here? How do we fix this?
Well, I remember seeing, I think it was back in 2019, 2018, when we had like almost like 70 ACL tears in the first 4 weeks across the NFL. And my first initial response was the turf is at play here. Because there's no reason with the advancements in sports science, sports medicine that
I
we
think it's
have
a pretty
professional
common
athletes.
take now, too.
Yeah, it's coming to the point where like we got to go back to natural because we're supposed to play on natural grass, but there has to be a better system in play where you keep your grass moist throughout the week, but then like the last couple nights before the game, you shut down the system or dry it out somehow, so it's more dirt than anything else is what I would say.
Well, I know this week was like this. It was a brand new like formula of like hybrid, like half and half, or however, like, you know, they do that. Like in there's a couple of fields that do that, but that had never like they tested it. It went great, but it had never been used in a game before, and then they debut it for the Super Bowl, and it's terrible.
Not the right time to debut a new product.
Yeah, whose idea was that? Save that for like the Hall of Fame game, or you know, the preseason. Like, Super Bowl. Come on, man.
Yeah. You know what blows my mind? This is off topic too, but like those dudes who used to just be playing on AstroTurf back in the day.
I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, bring back AstroTurf.
Bro.
So crazy. You're just playing on concrete. Like,
you look at an AstroTurf and you just like you just watch a guy fall and you just feel pain.
Oh man.
Like,
yeah.
All those Barry Sanders highlights.
We got stuck on an AstroTurf field, and I hated that, and I was like 8 years old. I can't imagine what it was like when you were actually playing real football, man.
No, I would rather just play in a parking lot at that point. Like, my God.
So I guess this is the would you rather play in a parking lot or tear your ACL? I mean, those are the options currently. They gotta find something else.
I'd rather just play at the Washington Commanders Stadium, the most horrifying stadium.
Would you rather die or play at a parking lot? Die via Lawrence Taylor on the blind side. All right, we're
pads on, blindside LT sack.
I'll pose this question. We'll dive into this discussion a little bit, move it forward. Mahomes now has 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls. Where does this put him all time for you guys if he were to retire today?
Top 10.
Okay.
He's not top 5. I can't willingly say he's a top 5 quarterback. Regardless of Super Bowl, you have Tom Brady. All right, he's number 1. You have Peyton Manning. Okay. Drew Brees may only have one. I'll put Drew Brees at 4. I'm going to put Joe Montana at 3. And then you have Dan Marino. Ring or not, Dan Marino is just that guy. If he even won one Super Bowl, he would probably be regarded to be better than Montana just because of how elite Marino was. I'm just saying that could be far fetched. That's my opinion. He's definitely top 10. He's not 10, but he's
Sorry.
definitely 10.
I'm laughing because I know the question I'm about to ask you is going to make you really mad. But what does Marino have on Aaron Rodgers,
I knew you were going to go there.
man?
I knew you were going to go there. And for me right now, it's the yards, and then I think that just the overall legacy of him. Just Marino, his name, like for so long, was just regarded as the number one guy. You could
I don't like,
they
and
probably
I do want to clarify. I don't hate the take of Marino over Rodgers. I have a lot of respect for Dan Marino more than most. So
I have Rodgers at 6. If you want me to be honest, he's not lower than 6. He's at number 6, and then I would probably put um, Patrick at 7, um, Eli at 8.
mm,
Probably gonna put Bradshaw at 9, and then Ben Roethlisberger at number 10.
hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna have to flesh out the back half of my list. We may have to do this another day, but okay. So Mahomes, we'll stick it to Mahomes for this conversation.
Yep.
Mahomes is firmly in your top 10.
Firmly in my top
If
10.
he retires tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I still think he's got first ballot Hall of Fame written on his resume. He's been to 5 straight AFC Championship games, which I don't even know. Did he even do that? Has Brady even done 5 straight before?
Pretty sure Brady did 8, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Then 8 straight, but he's still got
So
3 appearances, 2
unprecedented.
wins.
Yeah.
So it's and the fact that he's got the most likely chance to repeat. Plus, the Chiefs have, I think, 11 picks this year. I could be wrong, but they are primed. Whatever their GM has done probably the most underrated, best job as a GM ever. You get rid of Tyreek Hill. You get better in both yards, most explosive plays, points per game. Like you just get better. It doesn't make sense. And then adding the fact that you have that much capital going in the next year to get more receivers, to get more help on the back end of your defense. I could see them doing a repeat, the first repeat. I think is it since the Patriots? Yeah.
Yeah. Christian, your thoughts on Mahomes' legacy if he retires tomorrow?
I don't think 7 is a bad spot. Given some of the guys you put in front of him, and even I do like I have respect for Marino in this regard. I think it's similar to like Tom Brady is comparable to Joe Montana of that era. Rodgers is comparable to like Dan Marino of that era. I understand Rodgers got a ring, but it's like one guy clearly had more rings, but you like knew who was more talented, right? Like as an arm talent, like as a quarterback, it's just they didn't accomplish as much as the other guy. Regardless of that, I would still put Mahomes in my top 5, but it would probably be like right at 5. I think it's.
Go ahead.
Well, like it's obviously Brady is my number 1. Then I'd have to say for 2, I would go with Peyton Manning. But like then 3, 4, and 5 is where I really get kind of. I guess I would have to put Breeze at 3 as well.
Wow, we're hating on Joe today, aren't we?
I like Joe Montana, man, but I don't think you can tell me that Breeze or Peyton Manning like were in that, like especially Breeze and that amazing West Coast offense of the '80s with the team they had around him. That Breeze could maybe have done more.
My beef with people who slide, not necessarily you, but people who slide Montana way down on the list is like he was like clearly the GOAT before Brady was.
Here's
I don't have a problem if you put Peyton at 2 because Peyton and Brady
because Peyton was always in the conversation.
Yes, they surpassed Montana relatively around the same time together. So, but like I have a hard problem not.
I think I'd have meant Montana at 3, to be honest with you, because Breeze, like, he never got a second Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah,
So
4
I'll
Super Bowls is the second.
4 is a lot. So I'll have to put Montana at 3 just by default, and I think it would go Breeze and then Mahomes. I think that's how I would have to round it out.
I'm surprised you didn't put some Packers propaganda in there. That's a first.
I mean, I could for the meme and just say Rodgers is the GOAT, but like in terms of like overall, ranking, like he's such a good arm talent, but like we just have been robbed of a lot of accomplishments, man. Like what could have been.
It's true. Jake?
Yeah, so here's my issue with having Montana at 3 is he only has 40,000 passing yards in his
Didn't
career.
you put Montana at 3?
Did I put him at 3?
Yes.
I thought I had Breeze at 3.
I think he might have Breeze at 3.
Oh, okay. Go ahead then.
So regardless of, but I think not even just for me, but in general, I feel like you can make the argument is that Montana's stats don't have they don't jump off the page. He's only got 40,000 passing yards. Doesn't even have 300 touchdowns on his career. And he's about I think it's 139 interceptions. So his career statistics aren't labeled to be like that great. I mean, Phillip Rivers has more passing yards, touchdowns.
Yeah, you can say the same about Marino, though. Like, there's a bunch of guys.
Regardless of that, I think Marino is top 10 still in passing yards.
For now.
But to not be at 50,000 plus and not even at 300 touchdowns eclipsed.
I feel like there's a lot of like recency bias on those numbers, though, because I mean, Montana had to have retired top 2, top 3 in passing yards when he did. I could be way off on that, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I attribute that to like just a different style of game. But keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, and then with that, I mean, he was loaded with guys. I mean, he was loaded with having Harry Bryce on the team. So it just to not be at that number, to me, kind of. I mean, Carson Palmer has more yards. Drew Bledsoe's got more yards. You got Joe Flacco. Jumping Joe Flacco has more yards than Joe Montana.
Hey, your boy Fran Tarkenton's up.
Up there.
Yeah.
Warren Moon, John Elway.
All right, there's a little more truth to what you're saying, man. There's some older guys on here, but yeah.
That's kind of where people can skew I think he was carried by his team more than he was great in the playoffs and in the Super Bowls, but other than that, it's hard to pinpoint. Like, I can see where people would put Breeze or Marino above him. I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm playing both sides.
Yeah.
On the Montana. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to circle back to Mahomes, I think I would lean more towards Jake and put him at 6 or 7. I just don't think I can justify taking Mahomes right now. If I'm playing one game, this goes back to like the basketball like pickup game discussion.
Yes, legacy.
Yeah, but in terms of legacy, he's not better than Brady or Manning or Montana in my eyes. I'm probably taking Aaron Rodgers over him. I'm probably taking Drew Brees over him. And then that's where I think I probably fit Mahomes in around 6 or 7 at this point.
Yep.
I think that's it. I think one more MVP probably puts him over Brees for sure. Yep. And even then you have that discussion of Rodgers as well. He's one MVP short of Rodgers, and it just becomes down to like the TD interception ratio, and that Mahomes is cracked. So, so is Rodgers, but Mahomes is really good at that too. So, I don't have that big of an argument against. I think I've seen people put Mahomes at like 2 or 3, and that's where I start.
Which is absurd.
Pump the brakes a little bit, but yeah.
I mean, talent-wise, I think he's a top 3 talent.
Who are your top 3 talents? That's a great conversation.
I think we should flip it to that. Top 3 talents. You're going to like this. All right, you're going to like this one. I'm putting Aaron Rodgers as a top talent all time at quarterback. I'll put Mahomes at 2. And then at 3, I'm probably going to go with Steve Young at number 3, just talent-wise.
Steve Young. It is Steve Young.
Yep.
That's a little inside reference. That's a solid list. I might go Manning at 3, but I can see talent. The word talent gets skewed sometimes, so I can see why people would hate that take. But
Yeah,
Intangibles, you
like
would put.
Vic,
I would if
man.
you were to go based off intangibles, I would put
that's a
Peyton
different
over
kind of
Steve.
talent, though. Vic is he's a little like that's a different like I don't know.
We're talking football
Peyton,
talent, right?
yeah, football talent, not
Okay.
arm talent. Arm talent, Peyton's nowhere near the discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yes,
yeah,
we're including like intangibles. And okay,
yeah, yeah,
that's what you're saying.
yeah.
Because
They
yeah, I'm
should
thinking
have.
like Cam Newton. I'm thinking Randall Cunningham, but
Yeah, not arm,
that's where
not
you guys
just
come
straight
from.
arm talent. Arm talent, I don't even know. But yeah.
You could put Jamarcus Russell, man, up there for
Okay,
top arm
okay. We
talents.
might have to.
He
Jeez.
could throw 70 yards on one knee. Why
Jesus.
pick him first
He
overall?
can flip 3 patties at one time.
More like eat 3 patties at one time.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing.
Hey, while he's watching film too, But
Oh yeah, those
Watching
blitz
film.
packages, man.
yes,
The blitz packages.
blank CD, man.
Such a great story.
That's so good, man.
The what ifs of the NFL, man. That's
Oh,
if we could do a series of what ifs on the NFL, put RG3 at top of the list there.
mhm.
What if that panned out? Jamarcus Russell, if he panned out, all the what
What if
ifs.
Brandon Bostic was never born? I mean, seriously.
Ah, yeah, pretty much. We had anybody else in that spot. Yeah.
All right. So, to wrap it up, your guys' final thoughts on, final question. I'll say this. First off,
Yeah.
are the Chiefs a dynasty at this point? And if they aren't, what do they need to do for you to classify them as?
Ooh.
Jen, go ahead.
Ooh. I think what solidifies the dynasty is like, is it 3 or more in like we'll give it like 5 to 6 year window. I think even like if you go back to back, that gives you the conversation of a dynasty. They had that couple of year stretch between these wins, but they still did make it back. So like 3 appearances in 4 years. If they're not a dynasty, they're like on the border. I guess that's kind of my take. I don't feel comfortable going out there and being like this is, similar to like the Patriots dynasty, or like the Cowboys dynasty, even the Niners. They're on the pinnacle, even if I think they just make it back to the game next year.
If they go 2 out of 4 in 5 years, I want to say, right? 2 out of 4 Super Bowl appearances in 5 years. If they make it back next year,
Yeah,
I think you got to win a third for me to give you the label. That's just my
that's just kind of the
person like that. I think
baseline.
that's kind of the baseline. 3 out of 6, I think is fair enough. I think that's like this is a different sport, but that's what like the Blackhawks did in hockey, and people threw out dynasty, and even then I was like, wow, I don't know. Like it was like 3 out of 6 on the dot, like in one like right in the
Right.
middle, where there was no back to back appearances or anything. Um, I would probably say no at this point, but if they get to 3 out of 6 is where I'll say yes. Jake?
I think I think they are going to be labeled as a dynasty, and I think they should be. Currently now, if you go back and look at uh, the Warriors from 15 to 18, that 3 4 year stretch there, by the time they were in that second championship in a row, people were arguably saying this is going to be a dynasty or this is a dynasty. And
Yeah,
then,
but that's because they won 73 games the second
hey,
year.
but but where I'm going here is that they had core pieces set in place the whole time. Which, if things were moving around and they were still getting there, then maybe you could say not so much a dynasty. They're just getting lucky with good players and a good coach. But the fact that you had Draymond, Clay, and Steph, and then Steve Kerr getting you there, you have Mahomes, Kelsey, and Andy Reid getting you there each time, year in and year out. You have those core pieces involved that are, I mean, you could put Chris Jones in that core piece section there. I mean, I think they show to be a dynasty. I think they can continue the success for the next 4 or 5 years. And I can. This might sound like some Dan Orlovsky stuff, but I think Patrick Mahomes could get to 5, 6 Super Bowls in the next 5 to 6 years. I mean, he could get 4 or 5 more, 3, 4 more in this
tough
time
in the
frame. Because
AFC, man. It's with the young guns in the AFC, man. That's going to be a tough.
with the young guns, I mean, my thing here, if we want to get to that point, you have Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. They're going to have to both get paid, right? Plus T. Higgins, depending on what they do there. Joe Mixon, we don't know. He just got arrested, or has allegations out against him. Best kicker in the league. Or no, that's Kareem Hunt, best kicker in the league.
Kareem Hunt. Oh my
Oh,
god.
no.
And then you have Lamar. Questions on Lamar. Then we have Justin Herbert win a playoff game? There's that question.
I knew.
All right.
They need to get rid of their coach.
They
They
did.
do need to get rid of their coach.
Didn't they?
Brendan Staley?
They didn't fire him. No.
Oh, but they
No?
hired. No,
That
they
guy-
hired a new OC
They hired
who I actually liked. What was his
yeah,
name?
Kellen Moore.
Gilmore. Yeah, I liked him. Yeah,
Oh.
I liked that hire.
And then we don't know what's Tua's situation. And then we also have Josh Allen, who's been proven to be inconsistent in the playoffs as well.
T-Law.
Turnover prone.
And then there's that's where I was going to go. The only one I think who's in a great situation is Trevor Lawrence, because this is going to be his 3rd year.
Well, Burrow at least until the contracts. I mean, they got another 2 years before they have to re-sign Chase.
This wasn't this Burrow's 4th season?
Third.
Okay. So they got that extra year for Chase, but still it's going to be plus their defense they spent what, like 2 years ago, 70, 80 million on their defense alone. So
The Bengals?
yeah.
Oh, their defense was good this year.
Yeah, but like in terms of like who they're paying, I think when you have to come up and pay Joe Burrow and that Jamar Chase, it's going to look different.
Oh, it's definitely
They
a
have-
concern. Yeah.
They have Mahomes on this 10-year contract. Yes, it's $500 million, but the way the trajectory of how the salary cap is going to go and
He's
how
gonna be
the
underpaid.
quarterback market's going to shift, he's going to be underpaid next season, honestly.
That was
Yep.
such a good move, man. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Dak
Mhm.
Prescott
I
is
mean,
going to get
imagine that
almost
statement.
50 million.
Patrick Mahomes is
Yeah.
underpaid.
Yeah. That was, and at
Yeah.
the time it was such an like crazy contract. It was one of the biggest we'd seen.
It's
But
actually
now, yeah,
it's somewhat similar to what the Bulls did with Pippen and Jordan. Because Pippen
Probably.
for like that entire dynasty was
Yeah, that's 7-year
criminally
contract.
underpaid. Like he had like a 7-year deal. I don't even know if he was making $2 million. Like it was ridiculous.
Bad.
And then Jordan, until he retired, was on a similar deal. And then he retired, came back and made like 30 million each season. But which today is, if you ever want to get into the inflation numbers on Jordan's contract in 1998, it's pretty insane on what it would be today. But
hopefully.
yeah, that's I would, yeah, I don't know. The Christian, what's your opinion on Josh Allen right now? I guess then are we just tossing him out of the conversation in terms of top dogs in the AFC, or is he still holding it for you?
Oh no, I mean well, I don't have to like say toss him out of the conversation, but I don't think going into this season, I think it was like Mahomes and Josh Allen were like kind of the that was like top, and you may throw Burrow in there, but now like the floor is pretty opened up in terms of talent. And I'll even go as far as to say this. I think the AFC will become more wide open once Andy Reid retires. Like if Andy Reid coaches for the next 5 years, the Chiefs could be back to the Super Bowl 4 out of those 5 years. But I mean, he contemplated it, it said during a couple interviews and whatnot. If he retires next season, I do think he's a large part. Like he's kind of what makes, I think, the offense go. I don't think Mahomes is stupid. Right? Yeah, like I don't think Mahomes is dumb or anything, but I do think a lot of their schemes and the genius in the play calling in that second half is due to Andy Reid. That's how I think you can get better as a team when you lose talent. I mean, I guess some guys stepped it up, but it's totally a coaching thing. And yeah, I am curious to see if, like Zach Taylor can step it up. I do think part of that, the coaching, like Doug Peterson is going to help the Jags, but there's also younger coaches in the AFC. So I guess I'm just curious to see what they can do.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good take.
I
any
guess
other-
I got one last question for you guys. Where do we put, if we're talking legacy, where do we put Andy Reid all time coaches? With this, let's say with
coaches.
one more Super Bowl win, let's say he went to third. Where would he be? Would he be number 2?
Who's
And where
number
would he
one?
be now without that third?
Hi, Belichick, right?
I guess.
I mean,
He's your
but
number
I
one
feel
coach.
like
Yeah, I guess.
what I've seen with Andy Reid, I mean, I guess that, I mean, you can say the marriage between Brady and Belichick was perfect. The innovation offensively, even at the age he is, I feel like that has a case to put him neck and neck, regardless of win total and Super Bowl total with Belichick. That's my personal take. I feel like his offensive minded skill set puts him above the defensive minded skill set just a little bit, in my opinion. And people want to play for Reid. No one really went to the Patriots, New England, to play with Belichick. They play with Brady to get there because Brady was the winner. You know what I mean?
I think that's well put.
Yeah.
Reid with another Super Bowl. If he's not one, he's two in my eyes. Really, the only guys coming to mind are like old head.
Bill Walsh.
Yeah,
Bill Parcells.
yeah, I guess
Landry.
I guess Walsh. I wasn't even gonna say Landry. I was gonna say Lombardi because of all those or George Hallis, like going way
Parcells.
back to those guys. Parcells is a good one. I don't
That's
think
interesting one. Jimmy Johnson.
no, dude.
Johnson.
Don't get me started on Jimmy Johnson. Dude.
Nick Saban.
Okay. NFL here. NFL.
Danny Green. Just throwing a random name out there. Just throwing a random name out there.
Jim Mora.
Jim Moore. Hey,
Coach
Jim
who he
Moore
played for.
all time. Coach who he played for. That would be kind of fun, actually.
Who he coached for?
That would
Who
be
he
so
coached for.
hard. That would be so hard. Playoffs. But
Playoffs?
yeah, that's a good question. I think if he's not one, he's two. If he wins another Super Bowl, he might be two right now with just what he's got. That's
Yeah. I'd have to agree.
a good question.
Love Big Red.
Big Red drawing mustaches on Mahomes' face in that one commercial.
Don't have to get that personal. You just don't have to get that personal. Hey, I got my red shirt on underneath the sweater, and I got some khaki shorts on, or some khaki pants on. So I got the Jake from GNC vibes going on right now.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, Jake, thanks again for coming on. I think this is going to wrap us up. Good discussion on the Super Bowl. Be sure to check us out on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And we will be going forward with the Tuesday, Thursday release schedule. Tuesday will be football, so we'll get back to football. And then Thursday, we will be moving back into NBA Thursday. And that'll be our schedule moving forward, unless something crazy happens. But as always, thanks for listening, guys. And yeah, we'll be back Tuesday. So
Peace.
Take care.